The title of this video is Emotional Hearing. And at some point, I'm going to go back and number all of the episodes because these are a continuous story, even though it's some redundancy, connections, and things like that. Have you ever spent an hour carefully explaining yourself only to have someone respond to something you never actually said? You choose your words carefully. You explained your reasoning. You gave examples. You answered questions before they could ask them. You removed every possible misunderstanding. And somehow they still walked away believing something completely different. For years, I thought I was losing my mind, even though I probably did lose it a little bit. I thought maybe I was not explaining myself well enough. Maybe I was not patient enough. Maybe I was not compassionate enough. Maybe if I added one more paragraph, made one more phone call, had one more conversation, and gave one more chance, they would finally understand. But they did not, courtesy of being raised by hyenas. Not because they could not physically hear me, they did not understand because they were no longer hearing my words. They were hearing their emotions. And those are two completely different languages. What is emotional hearing? I want to introduce you to a phrase I use, emotional hearing. To be clear, emotional hearing is not a formal psychological diagnosis. And I don't have a license for anything but liquor license to serve liquor, bartend, degree, and something else. And it is my way of describing a communication pattern that many of us have experienced. Emotional hearing happens when someone stops processing the actual words being spoken and begins translating those words into an emotional conclusion. Communication has at least two major parts: the message being sent and the meaning being received. Most people assume that conversations fail because the speaker chose the wrong words. Sometimes that is true. However, there are situations in which the listener is not responding to the words at all. They're responding to what their nervous system believes the words mean. Suppose I tell someone, "You are no longer welcome at my house because every time you leave my front door unlocked." The actual problem is the unlocked door. It is a safety issue. It is a boundary issue. It is a specific behavior that can be corrected. But emotional hearing may remove the door, the safety concern, the irresponsible behavior, and the opportunity for reconciliation. Instead, the person hears, "You do not love me. You are abandoning me. You are throwing me away. I am unwanted." The actual issue disappears. Only the emotional injury remains. And when the behavior disappears from the conversation, the opportunity for growth disappears with it. Not to mention, you could even use an example of if you have neighbors and you telling them about their trash clogging up the drain or their guests blocking your driveway completely, and that the fact that it's illegal in all 50 states. And hey, I have so much driveway, maybe you can share my driveway. Just let me know if y'all need me to move. I can move, and y'all can have one side, I can have the other side. You can also tell them that it is perfectly legal for you to park in front of my house, just not blocking the driveway. And all they will hear is, "Get away from my house. I hate you, you stupid, musty bitch." Like people, yeah, that type of hearing is extremely common, and it is difficult dealing with people who hear that way. Very difficult, and it's super common too. That I mentioned. Why the brain does this? This is where psychology becomes fascinating. The human brain was not primarily designed to make us happy. It evolved to help keep us alive. For much of human history, rejection from a family, tribe, or community could create serious danger. Being isolated could mean losing protection, food, shelter, status, or access to resources. Because of this, the human mind can be extremely sensitive to anything that resembles rejection. I've been peeped. You can like studying people the way I have for my life, in my life, during my life, on my life, off my life, outside of my life, beside my life. Like, anyways, modern research into social pain has found overlap between the brain systems involved in physical pain and those activated during social rejection. That does not mean emotional and physical pain are identical. It means rejection can feel deeply threatening to the nervous system. The emotional reaction may occur before the logical mind has fully processed the sentence. This is why I'm always telling in my videos to get your emotional regulation together, reminding people that all of that outward emotion, outbursts of anger, and all of this other stuff, it is not healthy. It is dangerous. Not to mention, if you are constantly reaffirming your negative actions, you start to become blind to your actions and the impact they have on people, which then makes you become the eternal victim, where you're on fire. So every time you go in the forest, you in turn burn the forest down, and then you cry when there is no cover from the rain. You burned it down. That's what emotions do. And it's basically culture at this point for so many people, because they parents, like, one thing I remember growing up is that the older people, the adults of the time, used to always say, my mom and my daddy this, my mom and my daddy that. So if their mom and their daddy was a bum, they're bum times two. So I mean, hey, and the thing about the internet is that a lot of these people would have been failures in peace, because the only comparison they would have had would have been celebrities and people in their personal life. But thanks to the internet, and thanks to people over consuming the internet and being knee deep in so many other people's business, we are now able to see a lot of behaviors at a larger scale, which is alarming a lot of people. But I'm here to tell you, baby, it's been like this. Like, certain things are new, certain things are worsening, certain things are getting better. However, the humans have been on a repeat pattern since whenever. Like, if you look back 100 years from now in the past, you can literally see today in the people of the past. The same way that people are tribal minded, the same way that people defend things that don't even make sense, only to find out later it was all false, but they probably be dead by the time the truth come out. Like, it's the same stuff over and over again. We just get more technology. We get, the population may vary during the different situations, but we living on repeat. Like, I literally have been working on something about the clickbait before the clickbait, which was called yellow journalism, because yellow journalism was the clickbait of that era that I was pulling it from. And that you'll see it later. But anyways, the emotional reaction may occur before the logical mind has fully processed the sentence. That is why someone may eventually say, I know you did not mean it that way, but emotionally they have already reacted as though an attack occurred. Human beings also interpret new information through old experiences. A person who deeply believes everyone leaves me, no one understands me, people always turn against me, may unknowingly force every new conversation through that old emotional filter. The current person may be discussing a specific behavior, but the listener is hearing every previous rejection at once. You man, look. The listener may be hearing childhood abandonment. The speaker may be discussing lateness. The listener may be hearing that they are worthless. The speaker may be discussing dishonesty. The listener may be hearing that they are unlovable. This does not automatically make the person evil, unintelligent, or hopeless, but it damn sure makes them annoying as hell. Like, you don't get off scot-free because you didn't know. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, I've been through so many things. A lot of people do. The whole point of life is that we all go through things, not to mention the younger you are, and if you feel like it's bad now, baby, it gets worse, but it gets better too. And when I say it gets worse, it's because people die. People are going to continually die. Like, at some point in your life, you may be the last person alive out of your whole group of people. Now, that's very, very dark, but it's the reality. So the best thing that you can do is to build immunity to things you've been through. Become stronger after breakups. It shouldn't take 20 breakups for you to realize how to cope properly with breakups. It shouldn't take 20 friendships ending abruptly for you to start taking some self-stock into what your contribution is to these situations. Because if we are in repeat situations, that means, if we're going to take it to a scientific standpoint, if we're doing a hypothesis and we testing the hypothesis through a lab, and we have a variable and we have a constant, that will make you the constant in the situation and the other people the variable. So that means that something in you is not changing in any of these situations, but you're expecting different results, and you're never going to get those. You may get plot twist to it. You may get a little variation, a little remix, a little, like 2 or 3 new flows added to that song. But like, this is the most simple way I could put that. And it's not going to come out right, because we live in an emotional society where all of the people that everyone live behind a persona that is meant to please people, to the point that people have still not caught on to the fact that pretty much all of media is bought. All of the people we see in media are actors. Even if they're not actors, they're acting. And the media is worried about making money off of their head. So all of these different opinions and all of these different things that people tell you that you want to hear is for show. Just like content creation now, people are selling you whatever keeps you coming back, and then they putting something in front of your face to swipe your card. Like, and once you realize it, you're not going to unsee it. It's all about money to these people. It means old pain may be interrupting present communication, but understanding where a behavior comes from does not mean we must accept the destruction it causes. Compassion and boundaries can exist in the same room. My experience with emotional hearing. This topic is not simply psychological theory for me. It has been a part of my life for a very long time. That's why, baby, I am cool. I have came, I saw, I conquer. I am so cool. I really shout out to the people who lonely, shout out to the people who looking for community and all of this other whoopsie wowsy wham. First of all, you need to find a purpose first. When you find your purpose, everything else comes into place. You already have a purpose, but it's not the one you picked. It's one that life gave you, but based off of the habit you keep repeating. If you doom scroll every day, your purpose has then become to stay entertained. If you shop all of the time, then your purpose has become to be seen. If so you can fill in the blanks from there. I don't have time. I have dealt with emotional hearing in friendships, personal relationships, and family connections for years. It almost made me question my sanity because it started with the hyenas. I became what I jokingly call a doctorate level over explainer. If 5 sentences did not work, I wrote 10. If 10 sentences did not work, I wrote 20. If a conversation failed, I tried a longer conversation. If the longer conversation failed, I wrote a message. If the message failed, I added examples. If the examples failed, I changed the tone. I tried softer words, firmer words, compassion, logic, giving people time. And side note, I might add that it does not matter about intelligence. What matters is the way the person handles their emotions. If a person is dominantly emotionally reactive to stuff, you could be a genius. But still, if the emotions come out, it may be the same experience as someone who may have a disability with learning, because emotions are not logical. That's why they are dangerous when it comes to logical. When logical information is handled, emotions do not need to be in the room, especially if you're making decisions based off of the logic, because the emotions is how people override you. That's all salespeople do. If you ever worked at a company that deals with customers, a lot of the things they're teaching you is psychology. They're just not labeling it what they're teaching you. The different tactics they tell you to do when the person say this, say that. When the person look like this, do that. Like, it's all the same, man. Anyways, I genuinely believe that if I explain myself with enough detail, the truth would eventually get through. But over explaining could not solve a problem that was not caused by lack of information. They had the words. What they did not have was the emotional ability, or sometimes the willingness, to process those words without rewriting them. And that's one of the biggest pet peeves that I used to have, was people putting words in my mouth, especially when I am extremely detailed. And it doesn't always have to take a Harry Potter length text message to be extremely detailed. I could be detailed in one sentence. I just was under the impression that the people maybe didn't have the cognitive load to be able to read between that many lines. So I would just stretch the lines out for them. I would explain why I was backing away. They would hear that I abandoned them. I would explain why I was declining a request to assist them. They would hear that I never cared. I would explain why behavior was harmful. They would hear that I believed they were a terrible person. I would explain why access to me had changed. Like, more recently, somebody wanted me to call, but their pattern of us calling is unsolicited three-ways, talking in the background, putting the phone down abruptly, and you don't even know they didn't hear you, drifting off, doing 50 million things. So for me, time is too valuable. And if you ain't got a chance to waste my time already, it's too late, baby. Limited edition. I don't allow that anymore. And I'm not about to raise grown adults who know everything, because everyone with the messed up ways always be know-it-alls. Always. Now, that's a monolith right there. That's a monolith. That's my first monolith, and I stand on it. Everyone who knows it all are annoying people to deal with, because they are always able to speak on other people. And thanks to social media giving people the power to look at a bunch of stories all day and be the commentator on it, people are actually psychologically doing that in real life, to where they're becoming just like how you safe in the comment section. Well, not anymore, because some of y'all get sued, but that's a different video. But You safer in the comment section than you would be at ground zero on whatever the issue is. That's exactly what people are doing in real life. And I wish you the best of luck. Continue looking for love and friendship while you have tribal thinking and uncontrollable habits and self-awareness is chasing you, but you are faster. They would hear that I had thrown them away. The more I explained, the more exhausted I became. Eventually, I had to accept something painful. Not every misunderstanding can be solved by providing more information. Sometimes the information is already there. The person simply cannot receive it without filtering it through fear, shame, pride, trauma, or insecurity. That realization changed my life. Better late than never. I mean, I kind of already knew, but for me, my loyalty was stronger than my sense of self. So I was self-sacrificing by keeping long dead connections and making incompatibility work. That's like putting two AA batteries into a smoke detector, even though the smoke detector is a 9-volt battery, but many people may not know. Who knows? Because I hear a lot of smoke detector beeps when I used to look on social media. The relationships didn't always end because reconciliation was impossible. Some ended because the other person could not hear the conditions that would have made reconciliation possible. They heard the boundary. They did not hear the pathway back. And much younger me used to do a desperate attempt and just start mirroring their behaviors. And then they would notice me doing what they do, but they still wouldn't make the connection that I was repeating what they did in hopes that they can stop doing it so they can see how I feel when they do it. But that didn't work either. Emotional hearing and the loss of growth. The tragedy of emotional hearing is not limited to one conversation. When left unchecked, it can freeze a person's growth. Correction never reaches the behavior. It gets redirected towards identity. Every criticism becomes they hate me. Every boundary becomes they abandon me. Every consequence becomes they're just like everyone else. Every disagreement becomes no one understands me. Every loss becomes I always get the short end of the stick. When someone processes life this way, they rarely receive usable feedback. They do not hear this behavior is causing a problem. They hear you are the problem. And because they believe their entire identity is being attacked, they defend themselves instead of examining the action. This creates a repeating cycle. The person loses friendships. They experience workplace conflict. They are removed from certain spaces. Family members distance themselves. Partners become exhausted. But because every consequence is interpreted as rejection, the behavior that created the consequences remains untouched. The individual may say, I always get fired. Excuse me. I thought about somebody. Everyone eventually leaves me. People use me. My family always pushes me away. No one appreciates what I do. Sometimes those statements may be true. They do be sometimes, but you still missing a part of what you contributed to it. That's the danger of black and white thinking. People only think of good and evil, victim and criminal. In some situations, there can be two victims. In some situations, there can be two criminals. In some situations, both criminals can be victims, but that's nuanced thinking. And a lot of people just know black and white. And that's the danger, because you will put somebody under the good category and overlook their negative traits because your brain doesn't allow you to criticize this person, because that's hating. And in turn, those same negative traits will come back to bite your ass. And we see it all the time. And we will continue seeing it because human nature is to be this way. Like, these types of messages are not things people will ever become interested in on a mass scale, because living in comfort is much easier. As much as we can see the negative impact that people living the way they do have on them, they will still do it because they've had other people do it. They've watched their people get 400 and 500 pounds, and grandma can't walk because her legs look like two water balloons. Well, two big water balloons. So it's nothing for that same person to repeat that same cycle, go through the same cycle with dating, with friendship and things like that, because they already see how it ends. People are that much more safe with the evil they know than the possibility of a bright future that they don't know, because the unknown is scares people. And not to mention, the people that benefit from you being afraid of the unknown reinforces it through products. They reinforces it in the TV shows and in the different things. Why do you think that they keep rebooting the same stuff over and over again? That's not an accident. Like, they know that nostalgia is a drug for a lot of people, because even if the 90s, you probably had roaches, or your neighbors probably wanted to fight you every day. When you think about the 90s now, you just think about the different decor, the different types of businesses open, all of the different good memories. You forget that it was actually pretty dangerous too. So yeah, anyways, People can absolutely experience unfair treatment, discrimination, exploitation, betrayal, and abandonment. But sometimes the common denominator is not simply that everyone is cruel. Sometimes there is an uncorrected behavior that emotional hearing refuses to examine. A person cannot correct the pattern they have emotionally edited out of every story. The workplace example. I once saw the story of a woman who violated, y'all already know what this one about, a company's confidentiality policy. She learned that an employee was going to be terminated. She shared the private information with that employee before the company officially acted. Then she discussed the situation publicly on TikTok. The story went viral. She was fired. The employee she warned eventually distanced themselves from her. What fascinated me was not only the determination, it was how she interpreted the situation. Her explanation was not, I violated company policy, I disclosed confidential information, I damaged professional trust, I placed my own career at risk. Her emotional interpretation sounded more like, I am always trying to help people. I do so much for others. I always get the short end of the stick. The behavior disappeared. The breach of trust disappeared. The confidentiality policy disappeared. The professional consequences disappeared. Everything was transformed into a story about being punished for having a good heart. But good intentions do not erase harmful decisions. Caring about another person does not give us permission to violate professional ethics. Helping someone does not automatically make the method responsible. And believing you are a good person does not mean every action you take is good. That is one of the most dangerous effects of emotional hearing. It can turn accountability into persecution. Instead of thinking, I made a decision that damaged my career, the person thinks, my goodness, is why people mistreat me. The story may protect the ego in short term, but it also prevents growth. That is why my villain origin story of looking out for people is not the fact that, oh, I always looked out for people and they always left me hanging. When I look at the psychological structure that I built in the connections, me coming in the game, being given, baby, I had already created the pattern in them. And the pattern was just picking up how I act. And then eventually they became accustomed to that. And then time passed and you have a pattern just repeating over time. And then resentment built up in me until I stood up on it, you know? The emotional parachute. I sometimes think of emotional hearing as a psychological parachute. The truth may feel like a free fall. Accepting that we lied, violated trust, ignored a boundary, mistreated someone, or destroyed an opportunity can be painful. So the mind creates a softer landing. Instead of I harmed the relationship, the mind says they never understood me. Instead of I broke the rule, the mind says they were looking for a reason to get rid of me. Instead of I repeatedly ignored the boundary, the mind says they threw me away like everyone else. The parachute protects the person from hitting the ground of accountability too quickly, but there is a cost. They land safely inside the same pattern. The emotional explanation reduces immediate shame, but it also blocks self-recognition. And when self-recognition is blocked, the behavior survives. The person feels better temporarily but remains unprepared for the next relationship, job, friendship, or opportunity. A defense mechanism can protect the person from pain while also protecting a pattern that continues producing the pain. That is the paradox. I love paradoxes because we have so many. Thank you to the tool of the internet being used as a coping mechanism, because now we have so much material of things to psychologically analyze people. Anyways, why some people remain frozen. People with unchecked emotional hearing may remain in the same emotional environment for years. And this is why a lot of people, you know, who live in y'all small town don't want to leave, because it's not just them on the internal. The fact that everyone around them is frozen, that creates a forever sense of comfort. Like literally, when the neighborhood I grew up in, if it wasn't for them being condemned and shut down, there are people that would still live there now. There were people living there when there was rats coming through the walls and siding falling off and ghosts in the parking lot twerking in a circle at 2 a.m. And they didn't care because they would rather live there because that's all they knew than they would to move on somewhere else. This is why it's important, if you really want a life of growth and opportunity, once you get your inner work done, not even done because it's a forever journey, but once you get it started and start really sensing yourself and paying attention to things and really being present, because all of these distractions is making you live life on autopilot. That's why a lot of y'all feel like time is flying, because you're living on autopilot. The more you do at one time, that's the less capacity your brain have to process the information. That is why it's amazing that people really won't let go of texting and driving and distracted driving, because baby, you're gonna die. You're gonna die or you're gonna kill somebody. Either way, you're dead. But yeah, so you living on autopilot, you really have to like get used to new environments, learn how to handle roadblocks, because so many people are so spoiled where either somebody always handled your roadblocks for you or you just able to run from it and try something else. But eventually you're gonna run out of room from running. Twisted my own tongue. Sometimes the people around them have similar patterns. Sometimes the environment lacks accountability. Sometimes others benefit from the person financially, socially, emotionally, or practically. The assistance becomes payment for tolerating the behavior. The person may be unreliable, dishonest, intrusive, or emotionally chaotic, but perhaps they provide money, transportation, housing, childcare, social access, or some other benefit. Baby, I'm here to tell you, when my life was on the downward spiral, people did not care. As long as I had resources, they did not care at all. So, and that it's not their job to care anyway, but that's just me telling you, like, it's true. I lived it. So the surrounding people remain quiet. They do not challenge the pattern because they receive something from it. This creates an emotional ecosystem where everyone's dysfunction has a job. One person avoids accountability, another avoids conflict, another person receives resources, another person receives companionship. Everyone adapts to the unhealthy system, and because the environment keeps accommodating the behavior, the person may conclude that anyone who establishes a boundary is cruel. They compare the healthy boundary to the unhealthy tolerance and decide the healthy person is the problem. That is how growth becomes threatening. Growth changes the term of the relationship. And if you change the term of a relationship in a group dynamic, you are then changing the dynamic of the group. And before groups change, they will reject the person or things that are causing the change. Human nature, baby. People, they have people that was alive before we were that already looked at people over time. And then you have more and more scientists coming up and alley-ooping the information and alley-ooping with more and more facts and observations. Like, humans are readable. Plot twists. Like, if you read enough books, you will be able to kind of have a general mindset on the average things about people. Now, granted, you have unique individuals, but overall, the basic human, the basic unaware human, baby, you could be read up on in a book. And that's exactly what all of the things that make your life harder, all of the things that take your attention, your funding, baby, they use your weaknesses against you. The fact that many people not financially literate, so you don't know about the cost of real estate in your area, so you don't know that when you go into these hole in the walls and paying all this exorbitant money, you're paying their rent. One person is paying their rent with a section. Like, it's just insane. And so you literally are going somewhere that you probably could get harmed at. You might have a bad time, or you might meet the worst person that you wish you never met a few years later after y'all have an off and on relationship for nothing. Like, and it's because you are surrounded by other lost people. So being lost is trendy. That's how dangerous humans are. Like, we see it with cults. If something is trendy enough, no matter what it is, people will do it. There was a whole church overseas where people took their own life because the pastor told them to. So, baby, like, when y'all think y'all above stuff, you have to question, what are you currently under? When you think you above one thing, you under something else. Look up. It is important to say that the emotional hearing does not only exist in people whose lives appear chaotic. I have met intelligent, successful, and kind and accomplished people who emotionally hear. We see it online. They may have careers, families, highly educated, respected in their communities. They may be wonderful in several areas of life. Emotional hearing is not proof that someone is incapable of functioning. It's just annoying. Again, that's bye-bye. Cease. It may only appear in specific emotional territories. A person may process workplace feedback well, but emotionally hear criticism from a romantic partner. Another person may accept correction from a supervisor, but become defensive with family. Someone may be logical about finances, but emotionally reactive about politics. Human beings are not equally self-aware in every category. We all have areas where our reasoning is stronger and areas where our wounds are louder. The goal is not to label everyone. The goal is to recognize the moments when emotion begins replacing information. And one thing that people give away is when you project. I love it when you project because you tell me how shallow you are. If you hear me listening to one song or any association with anything that has an entity, a trademark, a corporation, or whatever, and your next assumption is that I'm the number one supporter of whatever the shit is, that lets me know that's how you think about things. That you are balls to the walls, stand supporting everything that you believe in, and that you one of those people that are the windmill warriors for whatever the cause is, even though it doesn't give you any insurance, any retirement, and half the time y'all find out 5 to 10 years later that whoever you were supporting was stealing from you anyway. So that just lets me know how small-minded people are, because majority of the things I listen to, I've been to all kinds of concerts. Like, if you don't know me, then you just never gonna know, because I'm not about to say all of them. But each time it's like, oh my God, you went there, so that means you really love them. No, I'm getting out the house, whore. Like, open your mind up. It's not that deep to me. These people are regular people, and I see right through them. So I don't see them the way that y'all do. Social media stand culture and group and emotional hearing. Social media gives us countless examples of emotional hearing. Someone might say, I like the artist and I think the song is a number one hit, but I do not like those shoes they have on. A highly emotional, invested fan may hear, you hate the artist. The compliment disappears, the specific criticism disappears, only disloyalty remains. Then come the insults, personal attacks, quote posts, harassment, and stand wars. Why? Because the artist is no longer experienced as a musician or celebrity. The artist has become part of the fan's identity. Criticism of the artist feel like criticism of the self. This same pattern appears in politics, religion, fandoms, lifestyle communities, workplaces, families, and social movements. Entire groups can emotionally hear. Some questions one policy. The group hears an attack on the entire cause. Someone criticizes one leader. The group hears betrayal. That's like an example, because I know a lot of y'all are not going to the beginning and watching the videos, which is cool. So I'll reuse a recycled example I had of this one person, me asking them, as much energy that we could have to always want to boycott and fight things and argue online, why can't we use that energy for positive things, like reminders of different city council meetings for local areas, maybe having meetup nights where a bunch of local parents take their kids to the library and we start getting these kids back on reading books, and the parents can get books for financial literacy and parenting and mental health from the library. Also, the library has free passes to a lot of local museums because that's a part of the benefit of it. They also have job search, they have career development, all of these different things. So why don't we make that more of a priority instead of people flying to other states, risking their lives to be in potentially violent situations, whether or not if they're the cause or if they're not the cause, but it's still dangerous to them. And then I also said to that same person, these causes that have these people crashing out online and in real life, these people are having real life consequences, and there is no funding for them. There's no funding if you decide to join whatever hashtag of the week and you lose your job and you have kids, you have bills, you have all of these different things. That's not safe. And if it was for me, which it never will happen, but if y'all were doing that for me, I would say, hell no, go home. Don't risk your life for me. Whatever it is, I'm gonna handle it myself, or whatever it is going to be known. I would never encourage people to do that. I didn't encourage it in my regular life when I had real beef. I never wanted to team up like the Avengers and the Power Rangers and all of that. Because if I actually care about people, I don't want you getting in danger for something I'm already in danger for. That's pointless. But then again with me, if I need help, that means the people can't help me, because I'm usually you can't save the hero. So yeah, anyways, someone asks for evidence. The group hears disrespect. Someone introduces nuance. The group hears disloyalty. This is how echo chambers become emotionally fortified. People stop listening for accuracy. They begin listening for allegiance. Oh, and to finish it up, the person told me that I had white Republican talking points, even though all of these positive things I was recommending were for the Black community. So I was extremely confused, because if I were a different race and a Republican, which the beliefs of that person was that Republicans don't like Black people, why would I be having ideas that would help you if I don't like you? If anything, I would hope that you continue what you're doing. Anyways, so yeah, is this statement true? The question becomes, is the person one of us? Once identity becomes the primary filter, information becomes secondary. The opportunity hidden inside a boundary. One of the most important truths I have learned is that many healthy boundaries are not executions, they're invitations. When someone says, I cannot allow this behavior anymore, they may also be saying, if the behavior changes, there may be room for repair. They never hear that part though. When someone says, you cannot come to my home if you continue leaving the door unlocked, the doorway back may be simple. Respect the safety rule, lock the door, demonstrate responsibility, rebuild trust. But people don't know how to rebuild because they don't know how to build. It's like everything is written off of somebody else's back. When people start building their own stuff, they will have more respect for buildings, for structures, for rules. But you can always tell when a person does not have their own rules because they don't respect the rules of others. Like they don't have any healthy connections and healthy boundaries and correction. That's why you can have people breaking laws, find out they're breaking the law and still be mad that someone is telling them anything. Like it's amazing to me, actually. But they have a lot of rural land around the country, rural land for very cheap. And some cities actually have low crime. So you never know. I might end up in one of those towns, help them rebuild. And that's word to opportunity zones. You may owe emotional, but emotional hearing may only receive you are no longer welcome. The person reacts to the pain of exclusion while ignoring the behavior that created the exclusion. They may accuse the homeowner of throwing them away. They may tell others they were rejected for no reason. They may disappear instead of changing. They may become angry instead of accountable. They may burn the bridge while insisting the other person destroyed it. The tragedy is that the bridge may have still been standing. There was simply a toll called change behavior. Not every relationship should be restored. Some betrayals are severe. Some connections are unsafe. Yes, they are. Some patterns have continued for too long. But when the conflict is based on a correctable action, the boundary may contain an area of opportunity. A boundary can reveal the exact price of renewed access. The question is whether the person will hear the instruction or only feel the rejection. Baby, people be on their time. That's the thing. People will people. Some people may rise to the occasion, some may not. You're constantly a story being written, and the thing is, you can't always try to change what happens. Like some things, if you've done it, then the reaction that you get from the world, from life, from whatever, it can't be taken back because you did it already. The next thing you can do is just absorb as much information and learn from it. When you become a person that can learn from negative things, you grow faster and in different ways than other people because you're able to receive it instead of having to repeat it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. Some people repeat it on a loop for the rest of their life. Like lives are different. That's the thing. And the thing about warnings is that me being someone with experience of over 30 years of warning people, I understand that first of all, I was out of place in a lot of those situations. Some people, destiny does not complete itself until they fully go through something. So me preventing them from going through something is just me preventing a lesson that would have maybe took them down a different path. Now, if a person is able to be a learner and learns without action, that wouldn't be me taking them away from the path because they are taking the path without having to have the consequences. But many people are not like that, especially people who are caught up in all of these different things that the internet has to offer and not and losing track of their real life, or the people who do things in their real life, but it's for performance of the internet versus actually building the life. It's amazing how people can say, I want me a man I can build with. I want me a woman I can build with. But you don't actually build. You literally skip all of the building and then try to display the finished product. But then you spend resources to display the finished product. And then you end up with no resources because the amount that it costs for the display is much more than what you would spend just enjoying life. Like people usually, like if you put people in a different country with very little items, they would be satisfied with very little. So the fact that we have way more than that and people still cry broke, which is amazing because we probably, even our poor people here, are doing better than most people in other countries. And I mean, it's annoying to hear that if you feel like you want better, but you know, appreciation is always a good start. The INFJ experience. Let me see if I have a slide for that. The slides be fighting back sometimes because with that, I try to get those generated because doing them myself always led to higher file sizes for whatever reason, but whatever. As someone who identifies strongly with the INFX perspective, I have spent much of my life believing that deeper understanding could solve almost anything. I believe that if I cared enough, explained enough, remained patient enough, looked deeply enough to another person's experience, we could eventually reach mutual understanding. That belief came from compassion, but it also came with the cost. People who naturally look for meaning can be trapped by trying to explain themselves to people who are committed to emotional misunderstanding. The INFJ mind may think, maybe I need a better metaphor. Maybe I need to explain their childhood pattern. Don't do that. Maybe I need to acknowledge their fear before discussing the behavior. Maybe I need to rewrite the message in a softer tone. Maybe they need more time. Sometimes those approaches help, but sometimes they simply turn one person into the unpaid translator for another person's emotions. Life eventually taught me that understanding someone's wound does not make me responsible for surrendering to it. Empathy does not require unlimited access. Compassion does not require self abandonment. And recognizing why someone behaves a certain way does not mean I must remain close enough to be repeatedly harmed by it. Not every misunderstanding is ours to correct. Sometimes our responsibility ends after we speak clearly, honestly, and respectfully. Their responsibility begins with hearing honestly. When over explaining becomes self abandonment, over explaining can begin as an act of care, but eventually it can be an act of self abandonment and it makes you look weak. There is a difference between clarification and pleading to be understood. Clarification says, let me explain my meaning. Self abandonment says, I will keep exhausting myself until you approve of my meaning. Clarification respects both people. Endless over explaining can place one person on trial while the other refuses to examine the evidence. At some point, we must ask, have I explained myself poorly? Or is this person emotionally committed to a version of the story that protects them from accountability? That question saved me. It helped me stop treating every emotional misinterpretation as a communication emergency. Someone misunderstanding your boundary does not automatically make the boundary wrong. Someone feeling rejected does not automatically mean you rejected them unfairly. Someone feeling hurt does not automatically prove you harmed them. Feelings are real experiences, but feelings are not always accurate interpretations. Emotional maturity requires us to honor feelings without automatically promoting them to facts. But also in some of my specimen, I observed the fact that they were very close-minded to other people, but they wanted like 5-star A1 top tier treatment to themselves. And then that's when I lost all respect for them because it don't work that way, baby. How to recognize emotional hearing in yourself. This conversation can not only be about other people. Every human being has emotionally heard something. Baby, people emotionally hear me all the time, especially if I'm writing something and a person doesn't know me. They assume I mean and give me a response based off of what they assume I meant, even though they literally do not know me. They literally do not even know my speech patterns or the type of humor I use or what type of language structure, satire, whatever. So honestly, whatever, I don't care. Like, it is what it is at this point. Like, I'm always going to have manners and be respectful. So if manners and respect is not good enough, then take it to court, I guess. Every human being has emotionally heard something. I have, you have, but I catch myself because for me, when I'm having communication with people, if my emotions enter the chat, it's all stop for me. Like we used to do offshore when it's an unsafe situation. Well, allegedly did offshore, but when it's a unsafe situation, you call all stop and all operations cease, and you have to review all of the paperwork, review what was going on, make a better plan, and make sure that everything is safely followed. That's what I do because I'm not about to muddy waters with my emotions. Like, that's embarrassing. Not even for me, but it's just embarrassing. And not to mention, it's it's actually a weakness in the wild when your emotions just jump out like that. Because if your emotions are present, you can be manipulated. It's very dangerous to have emotions out. when it comes to situations that require logic, as I stated previously in this same video. All of us have moments when fear, pride, shame, insecurity, or old pain changes the meaning of a sentence. The goal is not perfection, the goal is awareness. When you receive criticism or encounter a boundary, pause before creating a full story. Ask, what did the person actually say? Did they criticize my identity or identify behavior? What specific action are they discussing? Did they provide an example? Is there a change being requested? Am I responding to this moment, or am I responding to an older wound? Did they say I am a bad person, or did they say this behavior is harmful? Is this consequence connected to something I repeatedly did? Would changing the behavior improve the situation? Those questions create space between emotion and interpretation. That space is where growth begins, but also that is why previous videos touched on the danger of small-mindedness, because small-mindedness makes the likelihood of becoming an emotional hearing person extremely high, because when your small mind assumes the meaning of what the person said, if it is related to a negative emotion, then 1 + 1 equals you're done. How to communicate with an emotional hearer? Don't. Communicating with someone who tends to emotionally hear, clarity can help. You might say, I am discussing a behavior, not your entire identity. I know this may feel like rejection, but I am explaining a specific boundary. The relationship is important to me, but this behavior cannot continue. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm saying this action is causing harm. Feels like I'm talking to a 3-year-old. Please repeat what you heard me so I can make sure my meaning was clear. That final request can be especially revealing. Ask the person to repeat the message in their own words. You may discover that you said, I need more notice before you visit, but they heard, you never want to see me again. You may say, I cannot lend you money right now, but they heard, you do not care whether I survive. Possibly that too. You may say, I need you to stop sharing my private information, but they heard, you think I am a terrible friend. Yeah, that too. Because why are you sharing my information? That's very strange to me. As many secrets that I carry to this day, the fact that people decide to just tell business, and they don't even have to be secrets. If I don't know this person and they don't know me, why are they getting to know me for free? That's not fair. No. Reflective listening can expose the emotional translation before it controls the entire conversation. But there must also be limits. You cannot force someone to hear. You cannot explain a person into accountability. You cannot use perfect wording to bypass a defense mechanism they are determined to protect. Communication is a shared responsibility. One person must speak honestly. The other person must listen honestly. Baby, I actually spare people by having the conversation with them. It was actually me being nice by just leaving, because it was either going to be the conversation or no conversation. Because some people, I think their taste in people is horrible. I think that they make dumb decisions repeatedly, and they're so used to all of these different healing quotes that they make after each dumb decision that it's very draining to be connected to them. And with them being a bad judge of people, the fact that they overrun their mouth, that means that you have people that you don't even know you can trust, and you probably shouldn't, because you clearly have bad choices in people, and now you're telling them information about me, which thank God you don't know anything important about me, but still. So yeah, that wouldn't be fun to hear, right? The purpose of this conversation is not to shame people who emotionally hear. Well, if they emotionally hear, they didn't been shamed the whole video accidentally, right? Shame often makes defensiveness stronger. The goal is self-recognition. That's all I be asking people. A person can acknowledge, I misheard that because I was afraid. I turned feedback into rejection. I focused on how the boundary made me feel instead of why it was created. I made someone's correction about my entire identity. I protected myself emotionally, but I missed the opportunity to grow. That is not weakness. That is majority. There is freedom in realizing that a criticism of your behavior is not always a verdict on your work. You can make a harmful decision without being permanently defined by it. You can violate a boundary and still learn to respect it. You can lose trust and still become trustworthy. You can be wrong without becoming worthless. In fact, the people who can separate their identity from their behavior are often the people most capable of genuine change. They do not need to defend every mistake as though their entire humanity depends on it. They can say, I did that. It caused harm. I understand the consequences. I want to do better. That is the language of growth. And final reflection, if you are still here, shout out to you. I'm still here too, though. But I am in the forever present because now that this video is recorded, this is forever the present for me, which may be your future, your past. Let me not. Let me not. Emotional hearing is destructive when left unchecked. It can destroy careers, friendship, family connections, partnerships, and opportunities. It can cause people to repeatedly experience the same consequences while believing they are repeatedly meeting the same kind of cruel person. That's like for me. I have wanted to change because I used to be the equalizer, aka Mr. Overtime. If I worked somewhere long enough, everything would improve because I got down to the nitty-gritty with the people. But when I would go to an establishment and see that the general manager is a rambler and you ask him a yes or no question and he take 5 minutes to answer a yes or no question, hell no, ain't doing it. Weirdo, you weird, you strange, you need some type of help, you're clearly lonely, and you come to work and use this as your social hour that you don't get in your spare time, which I peeped that from the get-go. And then messy ass employees was like, yeah, he drinks a lot of alcohol and all of this other stuff. Baby, I smelt you from a mile away, like Wolverine and Sabretooth. People are so readable, it's boring at this point, honestly. I actually get excited if I ever come across a person that's not readable, and that's never because anyways. But awareness gives us another option. The next time someone gives you correction, pause before allowing emotion to finish the sentence. Ask, what did they actually say? Not what did my fear hear? Ask, did they attack my identity or did they identify a behavior? Baby, that's like offshore. I'm gonna be very muddy right now, so I don't care the reception. But when I worked offshore, from it being a dominantly white industry in certain parts, it would always make me so sad when I would get an a coworker, a shipmate, and they would use racism for everything. Like they literally would not be doing their job. Like we would be at the dock and they would be inside on the phone when we supposed to be doing cargo. And if they get written up, oh man, they racist. It's like this is literally a career path that could change your life if you play your cards right. And you're about to stop your own bag because number one, we make 120 a day, but you buying $500 shoes every paycheck, which is your business. But then number two, you building a life, keep buying stuff, but you're not even good enough at your job to keep your job. Like that's insane. Anyways, because behaviors can change, trust can sometimes be rebuilt, boundaries can create clarity, relationships can sometimes heal, and areas of conflict can become areas of opportunity. But none of that can happen if the words never make it past the wounds. For years, I believed I needed to become better at explaining. No, you don't. Because honestly, when it comes to tribal-minded people, any statement against their tribe, you're going to be called whatever negative word that tribe uses. If it's religion, you're going to be demonic. If it's race, if you are the race, you self-hating. If you're not the race, you're a racist. If it's sexuality, you're down low, you're undercover, you're self-hating, you're confused. Like these are just the things these people do. And honestly, I don't even understand why some of these conversations even take place between two parties, because if you're not a part of something, why are you discussing it? Like what is the point of it? Is it like a lesson to be learned? But people don't know what they do half the time. Like they say, forgive them, they don't know what they do. What I eventually learned was that I also needed to become better at recognizing when someone was no longer listening. That lesson restored part of my sanity. It helped me stop writing emotional dissertations to people who already edited the meaning. It taught me clarity is my responsibility, comprehension is shared responsibility, and accountability belongs to the person whose behavior created the problem. So hear the words before you hear the wound. Listen for the behavior before defending the identity. And remember, a boundary is not always proof that someone has stopped loving you, except me. Sometimes it is evidence that they're giving the relationship one final opportunity to become healthier. Growth begins when we stop asking only how did those words make me feel and become brave enough to ask, what were those words trying to teach me? And also, I mean, whenever you get time, there's a whole playlist and podcast list of videos. These videos all connect to each other, so you might find something in another video that I didn't mention in this one, because I do not like redundancy. However, for the point to land in certain situations, I do have to rehash certain ideas, but it would be nice if you could watch the other ones too. But thank you for everything. I appreciate it, and I hope you have control of your life and you realize that you need to be living. You can't be in the driver's seat if you texting, unfortunately. But y'all have a great day and happy El Nino.